Right. Now let's talk about the April 8th ceasefire. So, what happened there? Who blinked first?
I think Trump blinked first.
Right.
I mean, you look at all you have to do is to look at his Truth Social posts.
Yeah.
In March second week, he said, open the strait or I am going to hit you 20 times harder.
Yeah.
The Iranians did not open the strait. On March 21st, he said, you have 48 hours. Open the strait or I am going to destroy all your power plants. The Iranians did not blink. 48 hours later, he said, I am extending this by 5 days. I am in touch with the Iranians. We are having great talks. We might have a deal. Nobody knows. Who knows? So 5 days. Within 5 days, the strait will be opened. 5 days were over. The Iranians did not open the strait.
Yeah.
And then he said he is extending his deadline by 10 days.
Right.
And then he also said that they were in touch with the Iranians wanted the deal. And the 10-day deadline was also over.
Yeah.
They didn't open the strait. He extended his deadline by one more day.
Yeah.
Nothing happened.
Yes.
So that day was April 7th and April 8th our time. April 7th evening his time. But the Iranians still did not budge.
Right.
And then, of course, mediation process was happening because the United States had submitted a 15-point proposal through the Pakistanis. The Pakistani foreign minister, Shakdar, had confirmed it, that they had gave the proposal. Trump said that he was in talks with the Iranians, but the Iranians said no.
Right.
We received a proposal,
Yeah.
but we were not in talks with them. It's not a negotiation. This is what the Iranian position was.
Yeah.
So what we saw was that the same American president who demanded unconditional surrender from the Iranians sent a ceasefire proposal, exchanged his deadlines multiple times, his ultimatums multiple times, and then he announced a ceasefire on April 8th. When he announced the ceasefire, he said that the ceasefire would be contingent on Iran fully and immediately reopening the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah.
Today is what? April 14th. The Strait of Hormuz still is not open.
Yes.
But the ceasefire holds.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So what does it tell us? So who wants a deal so badly? I think the Americans
Yes.
wants a deal.
Yeah.
So, yes, Trump says that he has met all his objectives. He destroyed everything. Fine, that's okay. But still, all you have to do is to take a step closer and look at what the ground reality is. We understand that Iran stands firm. Of course, Iran got pounded. Iran got massively bombed. There's no doubt about it. You know, it will have massive economic impact on Iran.
Right.
They will take years to recover. All those problems are there, but they survived.
Right.
They are standing firm. That means the United States doesn't have any easy option.
Right.
Because they can't continue to attack them
Yeah.
expecting a different result, right? I mean, doing the same thing again and again, expecting a different result is not a rational thing at all.
Yes. Yeah.
So then the United States, what they are doing now is basically they say that, okay, we have met our military objective, but we also have to meet our political objectives. And to meet our political objectives, we need to cut a deal with the Iranians. So we are ready to cut a deal with the Iranians.
Right.
So that's what Trump is trying to do. So I think he blinked first.
Right.
He announced the ceasefire. And it's interesting that the ceasefire is still holding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's true.
Yeah.
And following the ceasefire, Pakistan held marathon talks in Islamabad.
That's right. Yeah.
On April 11th with JD Vance involved in the conversation, but nothing seems to have come out of those talks. So, what's really going on in these negotiations?
Yeah, and it's interesting that JD Vance went to Islamabad. That's another interesting point because the Americans did go to Pakistan. The Iranians didn't go to Canada.
Yeah.
The Iranians didn't go to Mexico.
Yes.
The Americans came to Iran's neighborhood, which also tells us who wants the deal.
Yeah.
And who came? JD Vance came.
Yeah.
He's the vice president.
Yes.
Why JD Vance? That's an interesting question. Because in June 2025 and also in Jan 2026, the Iranians held multiple rounds of talks with, no surprise, Steve Witkoff, who's Trump's real estate buddy.
Yeah.
He's also his special envoy,
Yes.
the highly respectable special envoy to the Middle East. And Jared Kushner.
Yeah.
Jared Kushner is the president's son-in-law.
Yes.
So the Iranians held multiple rounds of talks in 2025 and 2026, and on both occasions, the Americans bombed the table. In 2025, the Israelis started the war while the talks were still on. I still remember June 15th, the Americans and the Iranians were supposed to hold the 6th round of talks, and on June 12th, the Israelis started bombing.
Right.
And here they held multiple rounds of talks in Oman, in Muscat, as well as in Vienna. And on February 28th, the Americans and the Israelis started bombing. After Oman foreign minister said, he was in Washington, he said that a deal was within reach.
Right.
But then the bombing campaign started. So the Iranians clearly said that we want somebody else, not just Kushner and Witkoff. And Trump agreed to this.
Right.
He realized that the Iranians were really pissed. They didn't want to talk to only Witkoff and Kushner. So he sent his vice president. So vice president coming to Islamabad itself was a major thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And yes, there was no breakthrough. So I am a bit optimistic. I'm generally a cynic. But here, when I look at what happened in Islamabad, I would argue that yes, the Islamabad talks did not lead to a breakthrough. They failed to reach a breakthrough.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that the entire diplomatic process has collapsed.
Right.
Why? The Americans have a 15-point proposal. The Iranians have apparently they have a 10-point proposal.
Right.
The challenge here is to find common ground.
Right.
They haven't found common ground. Okay. So some of the American proposals are maximalist demands. I don't think no Iranian leader can accept that.
Yeah.
But still, I think if they continue the talks, apparently they are continuing talks. If they continue talks, it's possible to reach some kind of a compromise formula. For example, the American media report that the United States had proposed a 20-year enrichment moratorium. So that is a step down from the earlier position of the United States, saying that no enrichment at all. So they now say that a 20-year moratorium. And the Iranians have responded saying that they would accept a 5-year moratorium. That is also a step down because the Iranians had earlier said that no, we won't accept any control, any moratorium on enrichment. So the question is whether you can reduce this further and agree on maybe 10 years. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that is up to the negotiators in the next level, right? And Iran has clearly no intention to make any concessions on their missile defense program. But I think Strait of Hormuz as part of some kind of final agreement, because Iran has proved the point.
Yes.
The point is that if you attack me again, I'm going to shut Strait of Hormuz,
Yes.
enhancing your economic pain. I have the capability to do that.
Yeah.
So this is my deterrence. So you better not attack me next time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they made the point.
Yeah.
So it's possible that the Iranians might make concessions over the hold of the Strait of Hormuz as well, right? So I'm just speculating here, just analyzing here. So my point is that I think the United States wants a deal. I don't think Trump wants to go back to war.
Right.
Okay, he makes all kind of noises. I may be wrong, but this is just an assessment. So, so there is scope for both sides to continue the diplomatic process and find common ground. And there are areas where both sides can make concessions as well. For example, the nuclear front, the Iranians might be willing to make concessions. But I think you will have to give them security guarantees.
Right.
You will have to convince the Iranians that you make a deal now and you are not going to face any more attack.
Right.
Which also means that you need to rein in Israel. Israel is the real rogue player here.
Right.
You just look at how the ceasefire evolved.
Yeah.
On April 7th, they announced the ceasefire. The Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said that the ceasefire will come into force on all fronts, including Lebanon.
Yeah.
And for 24 hours, the Americans were okay with Shehbaz Sharif's proposal. They never objected to his proposal.
Yeah.
And then suddenly the Israelis saw an opportunity. They say that, okay, so the ceasefire has to come into force in Lebanon as well.
Yeah.
But Lebanon is my forte.
Yeah.
If you want a ceasefire in Lebanon, I'm not going to give you that.
Yeah.
And then Netanyahu he stepped up bombing. On a single day, they killed 200 people in Lebanon, right?
Yes.
At least 200 people. So that was a kind of a message from Netanyahu that here in Lebanon, it's me who take the call, not you.
Right.
So the real question is that you need to rein in Israel as well for peace. Otherwise, Israel can act like this. Okay, Israel has respected the ceasefire on Iran. They haven't bombed Iran. The Iranians have done that. They haven't bombed Israel since the ceasefire came into force. But Iran hasn't eased its chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz because that was one of the conditions of the ceasefire.
Yeah.
They still control Strait of Hormuz. Israel was supposed to end bombing of Lebanon. They continued to bomb Lebanon. Okay. So there were violations on both sides, you can argue, but still the ceasefire is holding, which tells us that at least the United States and Iran are interested to stay engaged diplomatically and continue the process.
Right.